And as you can say, I'm still moving around. God is still good today as He was yesterday and will be forevermore. And we praise God for God being God. As I say in my description, I actually want to start from the beginning or the point to where you can understand what I'm saying. I don't want to treat you as if you have been listening to me for all of the years that I've been broadcasting one way or another, trying to get information over to more and more people. Um, Homeschool, gifted children, Harvey Jackins. I mean, I can just name the various things that come to mind that I want to share, the various things and people. Rosa Parks, my uh, uh, relationship with Rosa Parks since 1992 up until the day that she died in 2005, December. I was in Alabama, and I was in Alabama, Dothan, Alabama, right here in Dothan, Alabama, for the reason of coming to the hot polls uh, to kind of renew myself. I lost my husband um, in July 2005, and it didn't go well with me after that. Although it wasn't that great while he was alive. But as they say, you don't miss your water until the well runs dry. And there were a lot of things that I wanted to say to him, a lot of things I said to him that I may want to take back. And I realize that that's not impossible either way. Maybe not the way we wish it to be, but God has an appropriate way for everything that is good and positive. So let's get started on, as I stated in my advertisement, just a moment, my clock, and I do need to remember to disconnect it. Plays a beautiful musical sound. Yet not at the appropriate time. Okay, sorry to keep you waiting, but I hope you, like I, had a chance to think over a few things during that time. I usually say at the time that we are silent, it means that we are listening. And when we are listening, we can find something positive in the way we're listening. Okay, today I'm trying out Restream Studio, live stream studio, Restream live stream studio for the first time. Actually, I just got on it and started And let's hope that this works. Okay? I'm going to read a little bit for you, and then I'm going to tell you a story. One of the stories that you will have also in my book, Every Child Born Gifted. And I know you will love the story because I love it. And I'm going to try and share that love with you. And hopefully, you can share the story and love with someone that you know. But let's start with this: The Human Side of Human Beings by Harvey Jackins. And as I've told you many times, Harvey Jackins is was actually my mentor, instructor to help me learn or to teach me reevaluation counseling. And who is the best person to teach you anything? The person that wrote the book. So Harvey's vision was reevaluation counseling and wrote many books, and others under or with him also wrote many books um, from or on RC, or their story behind their dealings with RC. So there are many books out there, and there are many people out there. There are over 60 countries out there in the world, in the globe, and over 22 different languages. And I think that's great. As a matter of fact, this one book has is in over 22 different languages. This one book is in over 60 countries. And I know more of them are here now in the South. I know that because I've gone to many different bookstores to make sure that this book is there. And I have used this book for many different purposes. And I want you to see why and how it can be used and how it is being used and how I used it and that it worked for me and others who have read it, and perhaps others, like some of my students that I bought it for, may still have it on the shelf. And if you're listening to my broadcast, I want you to take this book off your shelf and to read this book, The Human Side of Human Beings. And I would like to start with the, and when I say The Human Side of Human Beings by Harvey Jackins, Jackins, not Jackson, Jackins, Jackins, Harvey Jackins. I love the way Harvey opens this. The re-emergent human as at peace with all the universe, yet filled with zestful fire, serene with past achievements, alive with new desire, aware of distant galaxies, a pebble I admire. The past informs and reassures, the future beckons bright. I face all human misery and plan to set it right. The genius of humanity, a constant, fresh delight. I know the past and plan ahead, yet live the now that's real. I act by thought and logic. I just feel the way I feel. I don't confuse these separate things nor wind them on one reel. What scares remain from long ago? What fogs still fangs still clog my brain? Yield to the daily tears and yarn that let me think again. My use of all my gains include continual further gain. Harvey Jackins. In the book, The Human Side of Human Being, as I just read the poem, The Re-Emergent Human, there are acknowledgments, introduction, and there are 25 chapters. So, but we won't read it all today. The acknowledgement. Gratitude is expressed here for assistance with the book and with the development of reevaluation counseling theory. First, appreciation goes to Mary McCabe or McCabe, who has been who has been my closest collaborator, has shouldered many difficult responsibilities and has made many original contributions to the theory. Martha Remett, Margaret Lowe, and Margaret Haggerty, Haggerty also have shared responsibility for the thousands of hours of counseling people which establish the workability and refine the concepts of the theory. George and Harriet Gallies, Ruth Lockor, or Lockow, and Dorothy Lassers were of great assistance in the beginning. Many students and clients, far too many for the listing of their names, have inspired and continue to inspire us with their success and with their persistent application of reevaluation counseling theory in their varied lives and scattered locations. Appreciation is due my family for their participation and support. And I think I've said before that Harvey's son, Tim, is the one empowered as the leader of reevaluation counseling communities, as far as I know right now. Irene McMail has contributed greatly with typing and technical assistance. Now, the introduction. This book is an introduction to a theory of human behavior that marks a major breakthrough of human knowledge. It presents a solution to the basic problem of human irrationality, a problem which impedes the handling of all the other key questions now facing the world. Human intelligence is defined concretely as the ability to construct a new, unique, accurate response to each new, unique experience which confronts each human at each moment of his or her existence. This ability is differentiated explicitly from the ability of plants and animals to choose responses from an inherited, restricted list of preset response patterns. Human irrationality is explicitly defined as failure to create and present such a new, unique, accurate response. It is presented as an acquired, non inherent, unnecessary characteristic of present humans. The source of human irrationality is located in the distress experiences which the human has undergone and has not been permitted to recover from completely. The recovery process, inherent and spontaneous in each human, are strived to view from the universal conditioned prejudice which has obscured them and are explicitly presented and described. Ways of encouraging and assisting these recovery processes to completion and the results following from their use are indicated. These techniques and results are from the counseling practice of the author and his colleagues, a practice set up for the exploration and development of this theory. This theory of human behavior is in sharp disagreement at many key points with other presently widely accepted theories, but are not at any point where these other theories have produced practical results beyond symptom suppression. The book is an introduction only. Later publications will deal with the technique or the techniques of applying this theory with individual people and groups of people and within its wide social implications. December 1st, 1964 is when that introduction was written. Now, the human side of human beings, the theory of reevaluation counseling. I know we will start with the first chapter and the topic, what to expect. The following is a short description of what a human being might be like in the importance in the important area of the human's response to the environment. It is a descriptive model of what you may be like, an attempt at a general guide to understanding all human beings and the source of their apparently contradictory activities. Okay. This descriptive model has grown out of a deliberate and continuing attempt, now 14 years in progress. That was since the book. The book was written 14 years after the beginning. 14 years in progress to take a fresh look at human beings to see what they are actually like without assumptions from past theories and models. This fresh look has been difficult to accomplish because of the depth and persistence of the suggestions with which all humans are burdened during our childhood and education years. But it has remained a clear goal during the period this model has been developed. So you see, we are still talking about every child born gifted. And this is talking on the beginning of the human being and who the human being is. This is information, introduction that you need to know before you read my book, The Every Child Born Gifted. You may find this theory difficult to think about at important points where it is in sharp conflict with the theories you were expected to accept uncritically at your mother's knee in Sunday school from your psychology classes or from reading psychological fiction. The effort is worth making. These differences from older theories are among the most important things this description has to offer. These differences require that this description be thought about. It cannot be accepted uncritically on the recommendation of any authority because it carries no such recommendation. The theory of reevaluation counseling cannot be of much use to you unless it makes sense to you. You know, I, well, after actually, I would say, digging into the histories, the education experiences of gifted and talented children, and before I actually finished the book, Every Child Born Gifted, I involved myself into joining as many organizations and volunteering, questioning, and going to many sessions on the gifted and talented children. I was told or requested by many of the professional humanitarians at the Center for Law and Education in Massachusetts to be a correspondent for Gifted and Talented because I was one of two parents that had actually set out to make certain that Black children were included into the gifted programs of the United States Department of Education, which meant that this went out all over the different states and cities and counties. But that does not mean that it was actually embedded into the programs, which it wasn't. This was in 1974 that I'm talking about. And in 1980 or 1974 through 79 through 1980, we were still fighting for it to be a part of the active programs in the various school systems. But as I said, I joined these organizations because I said, oh, these would be people that understand me. These would be people that are like me, parents who actually feel or believe that they are responsible for the excellence education of our children. And I was on a high note of all of this. No one was ridiculous. I bought probably every book that came out about the gifted and talented 1974 throughout. And my husband actually bought it because part of that time I wasn't working and part of his money I did use, and he agreed. So thank God for that. We were both on the same level when it came to excellently educating our children or excellence education of our children and others like him. But I remember this conference call that we had on the phone with the International Gifted um, Organization, and some of the heads of the organizations were on the call as well. So I was on the agenda to talk about my new book, to actually, I was actually there to gain some support that would give me more energies and encourage me, give me more information that I could use, also more research and study that I could do in order to make sure that my book was the best and that people really believed in the truth. Every child born gifted. I made my presentation and then I was released um, to hang up so that they could talk about it and make a decision as to how they were going to help me. Something happened, and the conversation actually came through my phone, and it wasn't good. As a matter of fact, it wasn't based on any fact whatsoever, just their feelings and their oppressive ideas, their racist ideas to say, oh, we can't let her, um, we can't let her publish this book. And I heard someone ask, why? Well, you know, she is. You know, we can't let that happen, not before, we get things out the right way because She may include things that we are not in agreement with, etc. I know that I should not have said anything, but I did. And then I said, you don't have to. I don't request anyone to support me that don't want to. If you don't want me, then I don't need you. God has others for me. So I can move on. But that is not so easy when you have organizations as part of the system of what we're dealing with now. You're dealing with racism. Some of you for the first time, etc. Some of you actually didn't want to hear that word when I started dealing with it in 1970s and the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s and the 2001s and on up to now. 2021 is the first time some of you have even raised the subject of racism. And in that time, all those years, I had the opportunity to learn everything that God wanted me to learn about racism. And then I also learned that racism is not the only oppression. It is actually not the only oppression that blacks deal with. There are many others. There are adultism, which, I actually never heard of adultism until I started reading Harvey's books and started taking the classes. I knew of the instances that were occurring, but I didn't know that it was under the definition of adultism. So, a lot of things you will learn just from me reading this introductory book, The Human Side of Human Beings. I'm going to read just one more paragraph, and then I want to end this on a positive note, on uh, a fun story that's in the book, Every Child Born Gifted, because it is a fun book. I want to tell you. The reading over and over and over so many times, I still laugh at the different things that my children, that our children, and we did, and that God had a part in our lives. Places we went, things we did, people we met all over the United States because we all traveled. So, one more paragraph. Harvey says, I think you will find this descriptive model to be well constructed. It assumes or defines a small number of simple concepts, and these are related directly to common experiences on which there is general agreement. With these, the model proceeds to a useful and consistent explanation of complicated and diverse phenomena. And that ends my reading for today. Of course, that was the last page and two paragraphs left, but I said to you only one paragraph. So next time we will start from there. And this is one book because it's not many pages. It's a small book. And before we go back into the other um, books, I will complete the reading of that book. But let me share a story with you that's in my book, Every Child Born Gifted. My book begins at the first conception or the first child that I had. I knew nothing about having babies other than what I've heard from my sisters and from other people around. I know I always loved babies. And because of the very, I want to say very bad, but I can't think of another word at this time. So, the traumatic experience that I had when I was hit by a car driving 65 miles an hour, and I was only 11 years old. I would say going on 12. But at any rate, I was told because of the seriousness of that accident, which left me in the street for dead for I don't know how long, but it's long enough that I had my conversation with God or his representative, I put it that way, of or God's representative, he or she. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So does not say. At any rate, I was told that I would not have, could not have a child. So I wasn't looking forward to having a child. I was looking forward to adopting a child once married, if I ever got married. At any rate, I would always be around children. That never stopped. And after I was miraculously healed, I still was told, oh no, I won't have any children. And the the physical thing about that was that I had a broken hip bone, pelvis. So therefore, that left me not being able to have children, according to some people. It also, actually, the first guy that proposed to me to be my husband learned from our bishop or overseer of our church that I couldn't have any children, so therefore there was no need of him even considering marrying me. Okay. So from that time that he was told that, um, it was a very different process. Although we had dated for 2 years or so, without sharing or committing any fornication at all, and that is the truth. But at any rate, it was a clean break, and um, when I found out that he was in another town dating someone else, I was told why. And I confronted him, and he told me who. So, of course, that relationship ended. But I, I did have three beautiful, gifted, and talented top in the top 1% of the nation. Some say top two, some say top three, but at any rate, top 1%. And it appeared that everywhere we went, I had to prove to them that my children, that each one of them were gifted and talented. But let me tell you about the first child. God worked with me in very peculiar ways. I read books that I never read before. I did things. He led me to do things that I had never done before. These were all good, and these were all telling things. I learned that I was carrying my first child when I was only 5 days pregnant. Truth. Because before that, I knew, because God had told me if I did such, that's what would happen. And I want to tell you, parents, you single parents, I want to share something with you. God let me know also that carrying the child wasn't my sin. Having the child wasn't my sin. The child was not my sin. My only sin was having the relationship with my fiance before he put the ring on my finger. The suffering for that was that he never put the ring on my finger. So when we blame the women or the young people for having a child, carrying a child, when that person feels bad at carrying a life that God created inside of them, to make that person feel bad, feel worse, you are the sinner, because you're hurting someone that God has created and made good. So having the child, carrying the child are all part of God and God sent. What was wrong? Having fornicating is what was wrong. Fornication is what was wrong. Everything else after that was not wrong. And don't make that person, that young person, feel bad about that. One way or the other, whether that person decides, whatever that person decides to do, God is with that person. And you and I should encourage that person to follow God and make the decision that will keep them alive, keep them living, and hopefully the life of the person that they're carrying. Okay, so anyway, explaining all of that meant that I was fine. I did what I had to do in order to make sure that my baby would have the best life ever. I didn't know that my baby would help me to have the best life ever, and that the other two babies that I would have would be the same. That's where the subject came from, every child born gifted. God showed me that every child is born in the image of God. And God gave me three children, three visions of each child at each time I was pregnant. Yes, At 4 years old, I did get married to my husband who passed in 2005. We were together for 31 years. I was there with him in the beginning. He was there with me in the beginning. And I was with him consciously and subconsciously at the end of his life to keep him alive as long as God would have him be alive. But there were things that were done that prevented me from helping as much as I wanted to. But I never felt bad about any one of the moments of sharing life. Okay, getting back to my first child. And I don't have to say whether that child was a girl, a boy, or a girl, or what. I can tell you I had two girls and one boy. At any rate, when God would speak to me when I would be resting or meditating, He'd speak to me and would say, or God would speak with me and say things and things to do, and I would go and do them. So, one of the things that I did, I had this little clock radio. I don't know if you remember these little portable clock radios, and it folded up like a little Bible, had a clock and the radio on it. It had been given to me by um, a friend, and so I kept it. And I would be sitting there and meditating, and God said, "Get your clock radio." I would get the clock radio. It would say, "Lie down and rest, and put your clock radio on your tummy." So I did that, and I would ask myself, or ask God, why am I putting this clock radio on my tummy? And I would play music, just music, not words, just music, easy listening music and classical music. And I played easy listening music and classical music all the while I was pregnant. And there was sometimes, the easy listening music had songs to it, and what have you. And then, of course, I'm a singer myself, so I would hum uh, songs also. When I would have pain, I would hum songs, lay down and hum songs. Didn't have much of pain whatsoever. And when the child was born, to make a long story short, is getting very close to time for me to end this. So when my first child was born, it was as if my first child was humming songs that were played for her and was also listening. I played the classical music, the easy listening music, of course, gospel music always. And I would sing and hum songs. I played little 45 records and so forth and so on. But I didn't have any problems whatsoever with any of my children, but my first child was born and weighed 4 pounds and 15 ounces, which was she was not a my child was not a previe. This was She was born on time, in time. She was not born before time. And she was just as full and beautiful as ever. Skin was beautiful and everything. Hair was beautiful and everything. I had no problems whatsoever with her. And the music at 2 months, 2 months, mind you, I was teaching my child to speak her first word. You may not believe that, but it's true. You believe it when you hear the Asians say this, the Chinese say this, but me being a Black American woman, you probably don't believe that my child was speaking her first word at 2 months and walking at 6 months, picking her own books to read off my mother's coffee table, magazines, and then putting the magazine back that she did not want to read through. So at 4 years old, she was tested to read by a professional psychiatrist at 4 years and 11 months old. And she, at that age, she was reading, mind you, and this is documented everywhere, even in DC. She was reading, guess what? 12th, 12th grade, 12th grade, and not 12, not, can't even say it now. At the 12th grade level, 12th grade, 9 months level, which was just a few months off from college. She was comprehending college level materials. Did you hear me? 12th grade, 9th month reading. Comprehension was college level at 4 years and 11 months old. No, you never saw that in the Department of Education newspaper. It was in, of course, it was in the newspapers, but you probably never heard of it. You never heard of it on the radio or TV, or we were not interviewed by Oprah or anything like that. My first child was 5 years older than my second child. So you had 5 years to hear about the first child. And then the second child was born after 5 years. The third child was born 11 months after the second child. And all three of them were born, not just born gifted, but demonstrated their giftedness in these areas of international and national racism, but they could not disallow the testings because they were all properly, appropriately, and professionally done by professionals as well as done by my husband and myself, which we had already told them what it would be. And they could not actually, through their testing, they could not define their IQ levels because their IQ levels were higher than the testings. The Stanford Binet, the Wesley Achiever, and other testings that were done. Yes, it was a fight, but I will tell you the greatest fight was that of internalized oppression with our own Black American people. Didn't come then, and the children were able to get through, and also they are independently on their own. They studied what they wanted to study in college and the university. My oldest child actually received her first car at 16, right off the steps of of the university she went to. At 16 years old, she graduated and received her first job, which she probably still now have, as well as other positions and secured businesses that she has. So God is good, and I'll tell you more of the story, but you should read my book, Every Child Born Gifted, published by Action Speaks Heritage Excellence Education Journal. And this is Gloria Keith, the publisher, the education director, the parent educator. And I was their parent educator until they became independent. And yes, they are individually independent, educated, and experienced in what I believe they want to be, or they are reaching their highest potentials and self worth. And I thank God for taking us through. May God bless and keep you. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Thank you, and may God bless you and keep you until we meet again. God bless you.